I still remember the
He
sound of the
returns to
police
his
sirens
mansion,
echoing
but
through
the
the
night
quiet
brings
gated community that
confrontation.
night.
You can't
It
be
was
here.
past
The
midnight,
This is
the
my
kind of
home.
silence where even a dog barking 3 blocks away sounded loud. I had just returned from a 3-week business trip overseas, exhausted but excited to finally sleep in my own bed. But when I pulled into my driveway, I knew something was very wrong. My mansion, yes, the same luxury house I had built with years of hard work, had lights on inside, not just porch lights, full interior lights, curtains open. Someone was moving inside. At first, I thought I had been robbed. My hand instinctively reached for my phone. But then I noticed something even stranger. My gate code had been changed. My smart lock app showed a new admin user. My security system was disabled. Someone was living in my house. I parked across the street and walked closer. I could hear a woman's voice inside, laughing loudly, talking on the phone like she owned the place. I recognized that voice instantly. Karen, the HOA president. She had always hated me. From the day I moved in, she made it clear she didn't like outsiders with money. She fined me for tiny things, trash cans, grass height, mailbox color. But I never imagined she would do something this insane. I rang the doorbell. No answer. I knocked harder. Still nothing. So I reached for my backup mechanical key hidden in the garden rock. It didn't work. The lock had been replaced. That's when I called the police. 10 minutes later, 2 patrol cars rolled in. Red and blue lights reflected off the marble driveway and glass windows. Neighbors peeked through their curtains, recording with their phones. One officer approached me. "Sir, what's the situation?" "That's my house. Someone broke in and changed the locks. I have proof of ownership," I said, showing property documents on my phone. The officer nodded and walked to the door with his partner. He knocked firmly. The door opened, and there she was, Karen, wearing a silk robe, holding a glass of wine, smiling like a queen. "What seems to be the problem, officers?" she asked calmly. The officer explained that I claimed ownership. Karen laughed. "This man is trespassing. He sold the house months ago." "He's confused," she said sweetly. My blood boiled. She's lying. I never sold this house. She handed over papers. Deed transfer, lease agreement, notarized forms. Everything looked official. The police looked confused. They asked me for physical documents. I showed digital records, tax receipts, bank statements. But Karen's papers looked stamped, signed, professional. The officer pulled me aside. "Sir, this is a civil dispute. We can't remove her tonight. You'll need to go to court." I couldn't believe it. She's illegally living in my house. Karen smirked from the doorway. "Please leave my property," she said loudly so all neighbors could hear. The humiliation was unbearable. The police escorted me away from my own mansion. I slept in a hotel that night, staring at the ceiling, realizing someone had stolen my life. The next morning, I began investigating Karen, the HOA board, and how my house had been transferred on paper. And what I discovered was a massive fraud scheme involving fake documents, corrupt board members, and something that would shock the entire neighborhood. I didn't sleep that night. The hotel room
He
felt
watches the
cold,
mansion where
empty,
Karen
and unreal.
parties, unaware
My
of his
phone kept
investigation.
buzzing with messages from neighbors who had seen the
mansion.
police scene. Some were confused. Some were curious. A few even believed Karen's story that I had sold the house and lost my mind. That was the part that hurt the most. Early the next morning, I drove straight to the county records office. I needed physical proof, not screenshots. When I asked the clerk for my property file, she frowned at her screen. "According to our records, the property was transferred 3 months ago," she said. My stomach dropped. Transferred to a shell company I had never heard of. The signature on the deed looked like mine, but it wasn't. It was a perfect forgery. Not amateur, professional. I hired a lawyer that same day, a ruthless real estate attorney who had dealt with fraud cases before. When he saw the documents, he shook his head slowly. "This is organized fraud," he said. "Someone inside the HOA likely helped file these. Maybe even bribed someone at a title company." HOA, of course. Karen wasn't acting alone. She had the HOA board behind her, people I had paid dues to for years, people who smiled at me during meetings. I went back to the neighborhood that evening. parked across the street again, and watched my own house like a stranger. Karen had thrown a party. Cars filled my driveway. Music blasted through my living room speakers. People were drinking on my balcony. They were living in my life. I confronted her at the gate. "You know this is fraud. This will come back to you," I said. She crossed her arms, smiling. "You should have followed HOA rules. This community doesn't like troublemakers," she said. "Troublemaker? You stole my house." She leaned closer and whispered, "You can't prove it fast enough. Courts take years. Enjoy your hotel." That was when I realized she thought she had already won. The next day, my lawyer filed an emergency civil complaint and requested an injunction. But legal systems move slowly. Karen knew that. She was counting on delay. But she made one mistake. She started abusing her power even more. She fined multiple neighbors for ridiculous reasons. She threatened families with foreclosure over unpaid HOA fees. She shut off water to one elderly couple claiming maintenance. She bragged in meetings that she had removed a problematic homeowner and could do it again. Neighbors started talking. One man approached me quietly. "I think she did something similar to a widow down the street last year, forced her to sell cheap. Something was off." Another neighbor showed me emails where Karen threatened to take legal action for tiny violations. This wasn't just about me. This was a pattern. I started collecting evidence. I recorded meetings. I saved emails. I spoke to past homeowners who had mysteriously left. A few hinted at intimidation. One even claimed documents were altered. My lawyer contacted a private investigator. Within a week, he found connections between Karen, a shady title clerk, and the shell company that bought my house. Money transfers, emails, digital trails. It was bigger than HOA drama. It was criminal. So we went back to the police, this time with evidence. Real evidence. The detective listened carefully. "This could be real estate fraud, conspiracy, identity theft," he said. A case was opened. Karen had no idea what was coming. She was still throwing parties in my house, still acting untouchable, still humiliating me publicly. But behind the scenes, investigators were watching her, tracing her money, tracking the HOA board. And soon, the entire neighborhood was going to find out what their beloved HOA president had really been doing. The shift in the neighborhood was slow at first. People didn't want to believe that Karen, the woman who organized bake sales and holiday decorations, could be involved in something criminal. But rumors spread faster than truth ever does. And in this case, the truth was explosive. One evening, I attended an HOA meeting, not as a member, but as an observer. Karen sat at the front like a queen, controlling the room with her voice. She fined a young couple for parking their car 5 inches over the driveway line. She threatened legal action against a single mother for late dues. The room was tense, but nobody challenged her, until one man stood up. "Why did Mark lose his house?" he asked loudly. "He never missed a payment." Karen's smile tightened. He violated multiple rules. The board voted. But he said documents were changed. The man replied. The room went silent. That was the first crack. After the meeting, 3 neighbors approached me in the parking lot. "You're not the first," one whispered. "She tried to force us to sell too." Another neighbor showed me a letter where Karen threatened foreclosure over a minor landscaping issue. Another showed proof that their late fees had been altered in the HOA system. People were waking up. The investigator gave us more updates. Karen had used a shell company to buy my house on paper, then transferred residency rights to herself through HOA bylaws loopholes. She had done similar shady things before, but never this bold. She assumed no one would fight back. The police started interviewing HOA board members. One board member cracked under pressure and admitted Karen pushed the paperwork through and pressured everyone to approve it. He claimed he was scared of her. Meanwhile, Karen noticed something was wrong. She started locking down HOA records. She deleted old emails. She accused neighbors of conspiracy. She even hired a private lawyer to threaten anyone who spoke against her. But fear was turning into anger. A group of neighbors formed a private chat group called Save Our Neighborhood. Within days, over 30 households joined. People shared stories of intimidation, fines, harassment, and forced sales. They wanted Karen out. We organized a special meeting. According to HOA bylaws, if a majority demanded it, the board could be challenged. Karen tried to block it, but too many people signed the petition. The night of the meeting, the community hall was packed. People were angry, emotional, shouting. Karen stood at the front, pretending to stay calm. "You're all being manipulated by a disgruntled former resident," she said, pointing at me. I walked to the front and connected my laptop to projector. Here are the documents. Here are the bank transfers. Here are emails between Karen and the title clerk. This is fraud. Gasps filled the room. One neighbor started crying. Another shouted, "You stole our homes." Karen tried to shut it down, but the board members looked terrified. Police detectives were sitting in the back, quietly observing. Karen realized she wasn't in control anymore. She stormed out of the meeting, but it was too late. The neighborhood had united. The investigation was active, and her empire was collapsing.